Good.
Thanks. Good morning. Welcome to the Cambridge Power Platform User Group's spring sessions. 40 degrees outside, still carrying on with the summer weather in our spring event. This morning we have the lovely Lesley, who's come to join us to talk to us about adoption. So let me just tell you a bit about what we're doing this week and what the other events are after I do a little bit of an intro to myself. So I'm Sharon Sumner. If we haven't met, we should. And I've been an MVP and a regional director for 6 or 7 years now. I come from a place of SharePoint, which a lot of us did back in the day, through to the business applications, and I'm a business applications MVP, so all things Power Platform. The user group was started a few years ago, and there are several of us that gang together to help make that happen. We also have sponsorship for the group from both Zen Zero and Casper 365 as brands. And part of that sponsorship is providing us some help and assistance in getting these events off the ground. So it's not just me. In the background, we have Sancho Harker, Microsoft MVP and also co-leader. Sancho is another business applications MVP that I work with. Sancho, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone.
Sancho will be in the background moderating, answering questions in chat, etc. We have Luke from my team, who is Mr. Technical Mastery. He'll be dealing with all of the slides and the sounds and any issues that we get, and also produces the videos that go onto YouTube. Do you want to say hi, Luke?
Hey, folks.
And we have the lovely Amber Turner-Smart, who is our organizer. She would have been in touch with all the speakers and brings all of the event together, which for this particular event has been more of a challenge than usual. So morning, Amber.
Hiya. Hi, guys. Good morning.
So we do have a few rules, and it is just be kind, be nice, and respect each other. We are all individuals, and we are all here because we share a common goal, which is to learn about tech or an interest in tech. So let's be tolerant of each other, nice to each other, and all the general things that make us humans, not AIs. So this week we've done a whole week for you. So Monday we did AI in Action, which was a panel discussion with Zoe and Douglas, Sean and myself, talking about AI and how it relates to the Power Platform and actually the wider enterprise space of business as a whole. Yesterday, we had a fantastic workshop from Clarissa going deep into user-defined functions in Power Apps, which was fantastic and very, very low level in terms of the technical content. So that was our deep dive, our expert session. Today, we're going the other end and we're helping the users. So we're going to talk adoption, which is massively important, as we found from the discussion on Monday, that if we don't get adoption right, and we've been here before, this is a pattern we've had with the cloud, with Power Apps, adoption is key to getting the platform and getting the technologies off the ground. So Copilot adoption, really important. We're going to talk to Lesley about that today. Tomorrow we have Douglas popping back to talk to us about using Claude, specifically within the Power Platform. And then on Friday, we have a catch-up on the Women in Tech discussion. So Zoe will be back, and also Clarissa, to talk about where we're at with the Women in Tech agenda, which has been going for some time now. And we very occasionally check in just to make sure that we're all happy we're going in the right direction, and to help correct things if we're not. So that's what we've got on for the whole of the week. But today, let's focus on Lesley and the successful Copilot adoption, which is really important. Lovely slide here, all about you, Lesley, with lots and lots of details, but there's nothing quite like introducing yourself and telling us what you're about, what you're doing these days, and how you got to where you are. So I'll hand straight over to Lesley. Everybody, this is Lesley.
Thanks so much, Sharon. Yeah, thanks everyone that's helped to organise this, particularly Amber. It's been a pleasure with receiving your messages and support. So yeah, hi everyone. So you'll find I'm not going to do a big introduction right at the beginning here, because you'll find out more about me and what I've been doing as the session goes on. I'm not sure if it's going to last the full 2 hours, but I have got a lot to cover. It is a massive subject. So, but we might finish a little bit early. So this is me, what I like to call myself as the visionary in tech. This was a professional picture that I had done, a bit tongue in cheek with my binoculars on, looking into the future. But this is the real me now, looking a bit scruffy with them. But I've got here a frame round my profile image, which is actually something that we can give out to Copilot champions. And if anyone's interested in doing that, I've wrote a blog about how to do that. And then I've been an MVP for 10 years in the user adoption space. Started with Yammer, that's then just become Viva Engage. Then it's went into the Viva Suite, Microsoft Teams, M365 adoption, and now Copilot. I'm a real I won't say weirdo in this space, but in the in the MVP program, I'm probably the only one that's got a communications background. So I worked at GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, for about 20 years, went in there as a secretary, a PA, and then moved into office manager, and then spent 15 years as a communications manager. So at the heart of what I do is about communications, collaboration, and the importance of that as part of user adoption and the training and the comms that are needed to actually get this moving and get it into people's hearts and minds. At GSK, I also took Lean Sigma training, and if you've never heard of Lean Six Sigma, it's basically cutting out wasteful ways of working. That's what it's about. It's a huge thing to study, but it's something that came from the Toyota production line. So any manufacturing operation has been very focused on Lean Six Sigma to make their productions lines run that much smoother. So now we're going into the era of AI. So Lean is still a very important part of speeding up safely how manufacturing makes their products. I've also got this theme of sensei. So some of you that might do martial arts will know sensei with the EI. So about this time last year, I just happened upon changing it to AI. So I like to think of this as a master teacher of AI, and that's how I've got to, basically to this point of sharing my experience and my knowledge with you around my journey and experience of using Copilot now for, I suppose it's like, what, a year and a half, nearly 2 years since my first step into Microsoft Designer around creating images with other MVPs on LinkedIn, which was quite daunting at first, and I didn't use it for 3 months and thought I'd completely lost my job, but I'm here, and I learned to prompt by creating images. So I use images a lot in my work as metaphors, because I'm very much about making something complex, so making something simple that was actually very complex, and I find metaphor image generation really, really helpful. So Sensei basically means, from my point of view, taking your lived intelligence to work with artificial intelligence, but doing it with empathy, compassion, and using your common sense. And the common sense is, don't feed the OpenAI models with your intellectual property, your sensitive work information. That's why you're being given a license. So use your Copilot license. So that's basically what Sensei means. And I like to think that others could use this theme, because it's not the name of my company, and that I'm a freelancer now. I just trade under my own name. But it's the theme of teaching AI with common sense, lived intelligence, and with kindness and respect for each other. So the agenda is, so we've done the introduction. We're going to look into what culture and culture change is, and then this idea of human first AI adoption using a framework called ProSci ADCAR, which has been around for about 30 years in the consultancy space for change managers, and ProSci stands for professional science. I'm going to touch upon emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is needed for Copilot use cases. So there's a lot of that's basically where Microsoft partners seem to frame their adoption. Is all around the use cases. But I like to explain to people that they're a fictional proof of concept, that they're really good for tailoring your training and creating those agent scenarios. But what I've really focused on for the work that the customer work that I've done over the last probably 10 months is helping the Microsoft partner and the customer to gather their success stories, and that's done by nurturing a Copilot champions community. So this is the empirical proof of value. This is your return on investment for those $30 per user per month license. I'll also touch on really briefly compliance and governance, but I'm not an expert there, but I just thought I'd add it in at the end and introduce some where you can get more information about that really important subject. And there's also going to be hands-on prompts activities as well. So we'll see how we go with having a play with those. So there's been a phenomenal cultural change now with AI, and it's come through so fast. It's just where before we've, when we were, some of us that are old enough to remember the impact that calculators had on us when we were at school. We were told they're going to make us all stupid. It caused, utter kind of like horror that we were going to be allowed to use calculators at school. But then slowly but surely they were introduced, and then they were, you can use them in exams. And we don't worry that we can't do long multiplications anymore. We've moved on. And then the internet came, and that was the positives and the major negatives of that with the dark web. But equally, you just can't imagine being without the internet now. And now we've gone into the realm of AI. So these are all huge cultural changes. So many of you watching this probably never heard of change management, adoption, don't really understand what it is. But some will think it's just training, sending out announcements about the training is coming, or just making some posts. And then from the consultant's point of view, preparing presentations decks. So it's all of those. But actually, it's this massive iceberg, if you think about this as a metaphor. So this wasn't created by Copilot. This is an image that's been out for change managers that you can pick up from Google Images for ages. So this wasn't one of mine. But so actually that mountain, which is big enough to climb, to arrange all of that, takes a lot of effort. Is actually an iceberg, and we all know that what's below the iceberg is a lot deeper than what's above it. So it's ice, and it is dangerous, but I'd like to think that if it's managed and steered, you're steering your customers and your colleagues in the right way, then you're not going to hit this massive lump of ice. But below the waterline, you've got this cultural integration. You need to manage your stakeholders, the leadership.
Sorry to interrupt, Lesley.
Yes.
Are you meant to be sharing your screen here?
Oh yeah. Have I not been sharing at all?
No.
Oh right, sorry.
All right.
I thought I had been. Right, let me just go back to, that's weird. I thought I had it on screen share. So it's entire screen. Share. Okay, right, I'll go back to the PowerPoint. Sorry, everyone.
That's all right. It happens. It might have been because I took over for the initial introduction.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
So if I just quickly step back, so that's what I was talking about. That's professional me as the visionary. That's me with in reality with a Copilot frame around my M365 picture. That's MVP thingy there. That's me talking about communications. This the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, Six Sigma, and that's my Sensei logo. That's the agenda. So already mentioned that. And then this is where I talked about the calculators, the internet, and the AI cultural changes. But the calculators go back about 50 years. So we're looking at kind of like 50 years of cultural change that happened very slowly, and now it's happening like in a matter of weeks. And then this is where I was talking about this looks like a mountain that needs to be climbed for what people think change management is, but then it's actually an iceberg metaphor. So we get to underneath that massive lump of ice, we've got this even more amount of ice underneath, which is quite dangerous for boats navigating. So we've got cultural change, we need to get our stakeholders aligned, change literacy. So this is not just about teaching people to use Copilot that have never used it before. We need to take a step back and make sure they actually know how to use their OneDrive, share to SharePoint, and that because I think actually I'm not going to say most of us know this, but a lot of people don't know this, that if you are not using your OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams, then you might as well not have a license. It's really, really important that OneDrive is being used, because otherwise Copilot can't see what can't get to your other documentation. So if you're a company that's got the Wild West on your desktop and is still using old file shares, then you're wasting your license money. So you need to take a step back and do some housekeeping on your on how you're managing your data and get that in order. Otherwise, Copilot's not going to be, you might as well just use Copilot Chat. So there's the comms planning, more ongoing training, encourage people, to use to train in their own time using Microsoft Learn if they haven't got a program. Then there's feedback. This I've already mentioned about emotional intelligence, the importance of that, which I'll go into. Return on investment evaluation, sustainability planning. After, if you've been working with a Microsoft partner, and that engagement is usually no more than 3 months, you need to work out, how you're going to keep that new way of working, that culture change sustainable, and then building the capabilities. So that's where it's really good to have a champions program as acting as kind of like train the trainers. So AI transformation is 70% about the people and about 30% about actual technology. So this is what Sharon said at the beginning of the session. This is like user adoption is so ignored because the IT people just get incredibly excited about the new shiny tools and then don't actually communicate, or work with their organisational development learning teams about how to actually make this sticky inside an organisation. It's really important. Otherwise, it's most of the time it's a waste of time. But equally, so many people now are tinkering with, the likes of ChatGPT outside of work. And I like to think we're in a similar situation where when Facebook was born, everyone started using, not everyone, but a lot of people started using Facebook. But when you ask them to use like what's similar, like what that was Yammer, they would be like, I don't know how to do that. But it's like, well, you're on Facebook because I know you are, because we're connected on Facebook and you can use LinkedIn, but you're saying that you don't know how to make a post on Yammer. It's a different mindset. I think people were nervous about saying something, it wasn't kind of trusted back then, so it was a different mindset. But it's kind of like, to me, it was the same thing, that it's been given to you as a tool at work. You know how to make a post conversationally. You can do the same thing in work now. So that was quite a weird situation where outside of work they were absolutely doing it naturally, but then they come to work and they were like, I don't know how this works. So this phrase, build it and they will come, is not adoption, it's just wishful thinking for what I've just said. And this is a line that I used on a LinkedIn post. I think I wrote a blog about this. Leaders don't wake up worrying about their people's AI skills. They wake up thinking, we spent £2 million on Copilot licenses, and what did we actually get for it? So what I'm going to share going for the rest of this session is kind of like showing that actually what is the outcome and how you can grab hold of those outcomes and that they prove that the licenses are worth it. Oh, there we go, outcomes. So the model that I've been trained to use over the last, I suppose it's about 5 years, is the ADKAR model. And this is what it pretty much looks like. So it's an acronym for awareness, desire, knowledge, action, and reinforcement. And it is an individual change framework that's as an acronym that represents the 5 building blocks of successful change for an individual. So this is about taking people on the change. It's not forcing change down people's necks. It's not about forcing them to use something just because it's just been invented. So that's why the use case generation sessions are really helpful, because you can get a deep understanding, if they're run well and run appropriately, that you spend time understanding what that person or what that team actually does for a living, and then we can tailor the training to that group of people, and then we can start looking at possibly what agent scenarios can come out of that. So it's helping them own the change, also that they sorry, I've lost my train of thought, so I'll carry on. Right, so this is the model that I've developed. It looks very different to this, but it's actually the same. So here we've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 themes. In the center, I've put the human touch with our friends in the center, or with the AI poster behind them. So this is what I like to call the humane AI Copilot ACM approach. And this is responsible AI training with common sense, empathy, and lived intelligence. And it's not just about products. So that's my Sensei theme in there. And then I've got a link there if to the ProSci, to the actual ProSci website as well. So this will build like this, but I'm going to just walk through what this actually means, and then what follows after this is some examples of what this actually looks like. So we've got, first of all, we need to engage our key stakeholders, gather together the group of people that are going to be running the program. So kind of like what can be called the steering committee, this, whatever you want to call it. But it's going to be a group of people on the customer side, a group of people from the Microsoft partner, and often one or two people from Microsoft that are that own that customer relationship. And that could be anything from 6 people to 20 people, depending on the size of the organization. But it's really important that you understand who are the people that are responsible, that often I've started these engagements, there's no communications plan, there's no one from learning and development there, we've just got people from IT, and from the get-go, from that point on, I'm like, this is going to fail. So this is where this framework works really well, because you can have it kind of like as a shopping list. I've already mentioned the OneDrive Teams and SharePoint literacy. So this is something as well that I asked right early on, where are you with your data management? Are you using OneDrive? Because otherwise it's going to be a waste of time. And usually they say, yeah, we're partially using it, but it's not kind of used that well, or even when we get down to sensitivity labels and purview, I touch upon that, even though that's nothing to do with me, but I raise the subject because I know that is going to be really important. So that needs to be checked off. Then where I come into my own is around the employee engagement comms plan for Copilot. So I've got this down to a fine art, using Copilot to create the comms materials for the appropriate audiences and channels inside that organization, and can do it really quickly using Copilot to draft a whole array of emails, and give the customer the branding materials from Microsoft, the pretty Copilot imagery. Then I asked them as well whether they've got a responsible usage policy. Again, this is a bit 50-50, but I send them kind of one that's appropriate for their sector. So this is basically around, you've now been granting a license, don't use open source AI for your work, and that sort of thing. And then I also introduce them to the idea of a human first AI council. So this is something that would come towards the end of this probably 3-month engagement for the sustainability, for the reinforcement. So it could be something that the Microsoft partner runs on behalf of the customer, or it's something that they can own internally. But I've not called it the Copilot Council. I've called it the AI Council, because this is, from my thinking, it should be bigger than Copilot, because each kind of sector will have different types of AI specific to that organization that they will be experimenting in, or already been using before we might even get in the door. So this is an opportunity for the left hand to know what the right hand's doing. There should be representation there from the support functions, maybe even 1 or 2 champions that could come along and share the use cases, share their success stories. So this ongoing council of looking for where you are now, where we are right across the business, and also where we're going in the near future. Also to look at, I suppose, budgeting and how much this is all costing. Whether do you still need a subscription for this? Can you cancel that one? So I think it's just a sensible thing to have. Also, at the beginning of the engagement, the Microsoft partners work with to introduce the Copilot dashboard, which is the Power Platform, and I'm probably saying that wrong, Sharon, and the Viva Insights that's been brought together as a dashboard. So I think it's really important to get that up and running with the customer as soon as possible, so you can monitor the progress that you're making with adoption. So you can see there, the usage, productivity, efficiencies, how many agents are being created, the Copilot Studio usage, all of that good stuff there. So that needs to be introduced at the beginning. It's owned by the customer. There's sensitive information that goes in there about their financials, which is not meant to be seen by anyone outside the company. So they own the data, but they can give you an Excel download of that as a Microsoft partner, that you can monitor that and get some really amazing reports out of it. There's also Microsoft Adoption, so which is absolutely brilliant, where you can get a whole, like, hundreds now of day in the life stories around using Copilot across, like, I don't know, 10 sectors, I think it is. So I go in there quite often, depending on looking for these day in the life examples of using Copilot, depending on the customer that I'm working with. So when we do use case generation, we've got something to show them already, because it's quite a hard thing to get them to do, to think about what's my job, what are my processes, what are my frustrations and challenges. So if you can show them something that's beautifully designed and branded, and there's a whole process flow already there, that can get the creative juices flowing for them. So that's kind of like the first part of the engagement, and that is the awareness, the need for AI, setting that all up. And then we go into the desire phase, and that is participate in AI transformation. Sometimes when I'm doing this, the 2 and the 3 phase kind of like blend a little bit together, so I'll put them both up. So I've already mentioned the generation of use cases for the proof of concept, and I put on there in their design thinking, and I'll go into that a bit more when I share another few slides about it. So from those use cases, it is really helpful to personalize the training depending on what you heard from those job role sessions, and that you design the training so that it makes sense to those particular functions and to those job roles. I've already mentioned engage and teams, champions. So you would want to create a space for the champions to come together and share what how they're rocking and rolling, and their aha moments, and share this kind of 3C mindset around creativity, curiosity, experimentation, and collaboration. So there's a nice 3C mindset there that I picked up from Solava, where I worked before. There's a really nice download that you can get free from Microsoft called the 30-day Copilot Journey Communication. So that's something that your IT person can just download, and then it gets sent out. I think you can, it's 30 days, but I don't think you have to do it like every day consecutively. I think you can space it out over maybe a couple of months, where it sends an email out with tips and tricks around using Copilot, rather than asking your Microsoft partner to come up with a load of tips and tricks. You've got that will hit the licensed users on a regular basis. There's a link there to just using Copilot Chat Comms, which is, you know, the freebie, which is just for the access to the web. Still very, very useful. There's Copilot Digital Swag, which I've already mentioned, which was the frame around my badge, but there's also branding for email communications and posters. And then there's a link there to become a champion on Microsoft Adoption, and that champion program has been around for years, but they just keep updating it as they throw out more and more shiny new features and tools. So that was the desire, participate in AI transformation. And then we start going deeper with the knowledge of how to adopt AI. So this is where I get really involved and love running Copilot Champions workshops, also known as pioneers. I've found out in the last couple of weeks for a company that I'm working with, they've got change makers. I encourage organisations to name their own champion program to whatever they prefer. I worked a couple of years ago with the NHS in Manchester on M365 adoption, and they decided to call their champions program the Bees, because the bee is the emblem of Manchester, and a lot of them get tattooed. A lot of people from Manchester have bee tattoos, and it just, I said fine, go with it, and they also created their own logo. So whatever makes it feel like they own the change. This is why I've got people at the centre of this chart, of this framework. If you can get them to own the change, get excited by it, get a buzz out of it with the bee, then I like to say just do it, you know, just enjoy it. Then there's some links here to that we advise our champions and, you know, anyone really to go off and do your own training with Microsoft Learn. Then we get over to towards the end of, you know, once this is now up and running, we've got the part where we've got ability to tune AI to productivity and efficiency gains. So this again is coming to maybe the end of that 3 months of the Microsoft partner engagement, and you want to keep looking at your Copilot dashboard. So this is where you're getting your quantitative data, where I will talk about qualitative data and the importance of success stories, but from a success point of view, for outcomes of what Copilot's bringing to your organisation, you want to have your qualitative and your quantitative data insights and stories, and that gives you your Copilot impact reflection. And then we've got the reinforcement, the sustain the use of AI. So I also ask at the beginning of the awareness, is there an award and recognition program inside the company? Because this will be great for those top users that are identified on the dashboard that are probably now your champions. So they're going the extra mile. You're expecting them to be kind of encouraging the usage, training other people, encouraging other people to use Copilot, you know, appropriately. So you know, reward them for going that extra mile. And then I've already mentioned about the proof of value of the outcomes and the cost of the license. And now we've got co-work, which that's really expensive, and I think that's just going to be given to people that are really very, very special inside an organisation. I did see how much it costs, but I can't quite remember what it is now, but it's not cheap. You get tokens or something. So that's like the overview. What are we doing for time? So that's half an hour. So I'm just going to have a drink of water. Any questions at this point before I go a little bit further from our participant panel?
Nothing in the chat so far, Lesley. You're good to keep going.
Okay, so look, I'm just going to go a little bit deeper into each of these sections now. So this is an example of the Copilot dashboard that we need right at the beginning. So we've got there's some tabs along the top with readiness, adoption, impact, and learning. And this one is showing the Copilot adoption rate. I'm not going to go through all this, but it's got a ton of graphical information in there and data that makes, you know, great screenshots that you can put into a leadership presentation. So yeah, I think it's really important that you've got your Copilot dashboard going. This is an example of a responsible usage policy. So the first time I actually introduced this was to Emirates Airlines about, what was it, 8 months ago, and they were very grateful for it. So this is around this should be owned by data privacy and cybersecurity teams, and it's the do's and don'ts of using AI. I'm not going to read all of this out because I've already mentioned quite a lot of it already, but I'll just leave it there for a second. I'll have another drink of water. But I've got a blog on this if anyone's interested. So I've got, yeah, probably got a blog on everything I've mentioned actually. Then the communications planning. So this is for an enterprise size company, for a large organization. So I've gone high and wide. So we've got the leaders' messages. This is an example for knowledge workers and frontline workers. And from the messaging point of view, we've got the objective for each of those audiences, the message focus, and the channels that might be appropriate. This actual slide was created for a huge conglomerate organization called Alpha Teum in the Middle East, who own basically Marks and Spencer, Zara, Toys R Us. It's absolutely huge. So they've got huge communications, they've got many communications teams, like I was used to at GlaxoSmithKline, being a very large international pharmaceutical company. So big organizations are going to have different communications teams regionally or by product or something like that. So it's, you know, managing comms inside an organization, that does take quite a bit of effort. And often a program like this coming in, it's going to be quite difficult actually to get it to corporate comms, but corporate communications usually are the gatekeepers that are sending it out and down to the rest of the organisation. So I've often come up with, this can be a blocker. The comms team can be a blocker inside your organisation. You've got to really work with them, and sometimes you just can't get to them at all. So this is something that you really need to work with. Otherwise, if you can't get the communications out about the training, then no one's really going to turn up. So I put on there in red, if employees do not receive robust communications about training, sessions have a low attendance. So this is known as the hub and spoke model. I got there. So this is the central team that is going to be possibly sending out to all of these different parts of the business. Often at the centre, you've got corporate communications that are managing those messages and kind of like doing this what we call kind of like a helicopter view, a 30,000-foot view of what's going on in those other parts of the business, so that they're not overwhelming the rest of the business with too much coming at them at the same time. So there's a whole balancing act that needs to happen with communications. So that's those two little bits that I wanted to point out in the awareness part. And then we've got the desire, participate, and AI transformation. So from the work that I've done with Champions programs, I've now realised that there are different flavours to your Champions program. There's the one that I did at Solava for 8 customers successfully, which was a scaled champion development, enterprise-wide approach. But there's also now another version where it's a much targeted champion incubation period, and it's with a selective small group approach. So we've got on here the benefits and the risks of both. So I'm not going to read this all off, but I'll let you have a little read while I have another drink of water. So the one on the left is where I would end the engagement with success stories, and I'm going to show you how to do that really easily with a prompt. I felt like I hadn't done a good job unless by the end of the six sessions over 6 weeks of running champion sessions, if I didn't come out with a couple of success stories, I felt like we failed. And well, we worked with one organisation, I'm not going to say who it was, but they told me that it had 400 use cases. And I said, so, but what are your success stories? And they just looked at me blankly. Success use cases are fictional. Success stories prove, the worth of the license. So then we've got the targeted champion incubation, which just basically gets to proof of concept to create an agent. So this is really, really early days, but going through that process, training would have been done to teach a group of license holders on how to prompt. So there is going to be success stories coming out of it, but this version on the right is really just intended for, at the end of it, that one use case is selected as a proof of concept for an agent. So they're both valid depending on what has been agreed by that organisation. So the one on the left is very much go, go, go. And that's where I've been in the Middle East, and it's government funded. So it's been huge. And then now working back with UK companies, it's kind of like this is a slower uptake, and that's absolutely fine. So going into emotional intelligence, as I've mentioned at the beginning, if you've not heard this phrase before, it's the ability to recognise, understand and manage emotions, your own and others, to build better relationships and make better decisions and achieve better outcomes. So why does EI matter for consultants? So it's about crafting compelling, influential narratives, bridge automation with human experience. And this is such a hot topic for me at the moment, that I work in this space and I love AI, but it terrifies me around autonomous agents, really terrifies me. And I've realised now that there is, someone shared with me that there is now a human review within the agent process in Copilot Studio. You can push this in, that the agent is forced to stop and humans will have to take over to say whether it's this kind of like a stop go. So I've seen the YouTube video on this, and I will share that with you guys. Actually, we get it out to you one way or another, because I think it's really, really important, and it's the ethics and the morals of autonomous agents going forward, and distinguish between agentic possibilities and lived success stories. So that's what I've already talked about, the use cases, and then actually saying, looking sorry, I've forgotten the word, actually, documenting those real success stories that are making such a huge difference to that organisations. So this is, you need to have empathy, cultural awareness and clear and resonant communication. So the two lenses of Copilot adoption, I'm banging on about this. So we've got here agent scenario use cases, which is fiction. It's scalable automation that we're looking at here, structured repeatable workflows, productivity and operational consistency. And you can see loads of examples of those on the Microsoft scenario library that I mentioned earlier. And then we've got here the human-centered success stories around the emotion and the trust, the cultural readiness, real responsible experience, and that's been brought out, that's been developed by champion communities. And that's I put on there where you can find a whole array of those with Microsoft success stories. So I brought into this as well design thinking. So I now are using design thinking alongside ADCAR. So design thinking is human-centered problem solving, where you're you're working with your end users, with your champions around what is the real problem and what's the best solution. It's iterative, cyclical stages to helping them create those use cases. Innovation, reframing, creativity. That's what I was saying. Creativity, curiosity, and collaboration. Problem is unclear or solution needs discovery. So they might not even know that there's a problem, but after they've kind of like explained what their process is, you realize that it's taking them weeks, if not months, to bring a report together, where Copilot can do it in probably 30 minutes. And then it's around prototyping and creating validated solutions. So that's what design thinking is, and I think that is perfect for creating the use cases to actually creating agents. So you might want to have a look further into design thinking. And then ProSci is, what does this person need to adopt the change? There's 5 sequential outcomes, those 5 themes. Then there's, adoption plans and, changes defined and needs. So they're different. But to try and bring this out, to make that quite complex way of thinking, if you've never thought about it that way before, I've got Copilot to create me this nice image. So design thinking is observing the hive and designing the environment. So it's understanding needs, reframing problems, and creating solutions, where ACCAR for change is helping each bee adapt to the change. So it's to build awareness, encourage desire, teach and support, and reinforce new habits. So basically those 5 on the one on the right is that ACCAR framework that we've gone round. And I forgot to say that you don't have to do it in that order. You don't have to do it one after the other, because often I've found that I will go into an organisation, do some gap analysis at the beginning to find out what they've already done. So they might have already had their licenses a year, they might have already had a champions program, but they haven't really got any senior stakeholders in there, and it's not working. People aren't using Copilot. It hasn't become sticky. It hasn't become sweet like honey and sticky. So then I can do gap analysis and look to see what's missing from this framework, and actually really guide them very, very quickly on, actually, you need to do this, this, and this, and bring it all back round again. So the use case generation. So we're looking at this idea of the art of the possible. The wrong way of doing it is starting with AI capabilities, what the tool can do. Tech first, tool centered. It's missing the human element, as I said, but the right way to do it with design thinking is start with the person's work. What's their most important work? What's their mundane tasks? For me, and how does this fit together is kind of like, the bigger picture of the jigsaw puzzle of how my work fits into my team, and then ultimately the organisation and, the shareholders. And this is around then the lovely little smiley picture there of empowering the human. So to get a head start on potential use cases, I ask my early champions or pioneers, or whatever you want to call them, where do you spend most of your time? In Excel, PowerPoint, or Word? If you're a business analyst, or you work in finance or procurement, you're going to spend most of your time in Excel looking at the numbers. If you work in HR, you're going to be probably in Word with job descriptions. And you're probably going to be in PowerPoint if you're a senior leader. So if this will make that early conversation around, what's your job, what do you do, find out where they spend most of their time in those well-known products. These are examples of Copilot use cases that came to light when I've done this for an HR team. So we've got some great ones here: onboarding experience optimization, training operations automation, AI reward certificate validation. I'm not going to read them all out, but this was some really strong use cases that could be turned into agents. What I've got here, I'm going to ask Sharon's opinion here. That this is a prompt that you can play with if you want to have a go with this now, or I could just carry on and that we can just leave it, that this is something that others can try in their own time. So to make this quite what can be quite a painful experience, both for the consultant and for the person that they're asking in the HR department. Tell me about your job. What are your use cases? You can either sit there and listen to them non-stop for half an hour telling you all about their job. And in some cases, that can be really boring for the consultant, because some jobs, like, okay, if you work in HR, you know what they do, but in some companies, it's going to be so complex, and you're going to lose the will to live, because they start talking about systems that you don't even know what they mean, and you won't even care. But equally, you can kind of give them that opportunity. Make sure you switch on the transcription in your Microsoft Teams meetings for all of these customer engagements. Have that transcription on, so then once that person's done that huge download about their job, you can get Copilot to explain it to you, like really simply, and then you can truly understand where you can take them on possible use case generation. So once you've kind of ask them what they do, show them a couple of day in the life examples from the Microsoft scenario library to again give them some inspiration. Then you can give them this prompt: generate Copilot use cases useful to my role in my department, because so that they can help structure the training that follows. I've just put that in brackets, they don't have to use it. But basically the prompt is generate Copilot use cases useful to my role in my department, and they need to make sure that they've got their work Copilot's license switched on to do this. And every time I've tried this with whoever, they get a great load of use cases back that you can work through them to get it to get Copilot to summarize it. And you know, by the end of the session, you really are going to have some excellent use cases. Some of them, the person will say, oh no, that doesn't make sense, but there should be at least one or two, if not three, there that are going to be excellent use case examples. So we're not going, I don't think we will do any actual hands-on stuff, because we're going to run out of time. So number 3 is knowledge, how to adopt AI. So this is an example of a flexible agenda that I use for a Copilot Champions sessions. So as I said, most of the time I've done this, we allocate the customer 6 sessions for half an hour. And there's an icebreaker introduction, there's exploring the role and impact of Copilot Champions. Each week we dive into advanced Copilot features and ask them if they're having any issues. But I put on there right big in the centre, have you got any success stories that you can share with us? Would you like to come back next week and share your screen for amazing prompts that you might have been using? Are you working, have you started to create any light agents? You know, this is not supposed to be death by PowerPoint by me, the facilitator. These sessions are meant to be owned by these amazing people. So building the community, encourage continuous learning, setting up success criteria and defining the KPIs for this program, and then hands-on activities and feedback. So basically the prompts I'm going to share in this session with you now are the prompts that I would use in this Champions program. So one of the things I do right at the beginning is, even whatever level they're at, is to encourage them to create their own image. So this is me, and I'm a T-shaped generalist specialist. So going forward, I encourage everyone to become a generalist. Don't just rely on your one specific thing that you have experience in, that you've been in IT for a long time. Have something else in your backpack, and that could be even doing something with your hands, you know, like building or becoming a wellness therapy or something like that, or gardening or something like that. Have something else that you can do, that you can fall back on and that you love, because the AI is eating up knowledge work, and I think we all realize that now. So you need something else to make your life kind of like have purpose in your life, that it's not all about work. So my top of my tea is I'm a communications and change management consultant who coaches AI with empathy, creativity and collaboration. I'm an MVP, but I also love honey and bees, and I host honey awareness workshops and about the importance of honey, and there's a lot of rubbish honey in the world. So I do that. I run those workshops, and they're very, very tasty, and also explain the importance of bees in our food ecosystem. So I've learned this with AI. Everything and I taste a lot of honey, which is delicious, and I also live in Brighton. So this gives me the opportunity to introduce myself, get to know the other people that I'm going to be working with over that 6 weeks. It could be a really small group of people, but equally by creating that image, it says it quite quickly what I'm about, and then I set them this as a challenge to actually bring it back the next week. But often I've done this in sessions, and they started to share it in the chat immediately, which is just really fun. So there is a prompt I got here. Oh, there, the prompt is create a generalist specialist image for basically for me, and upload maybe your a photograph of yourself that you really like, include the role, sector experience, certifications, personal background, hobbies and locations. So this teaches people to how to prompt really early on, how to write a really meaningful prompt, and then have that conversation with AI around how you can improve it. This image annoys me because it put earrings on me. I never wear earrings, but I couldn't be bothered to argue with the image generator, but equally I left it on there so I would remember to say, like, it's not always perfect each time, so that's why I left it there. So for Copilot Champions, what's in it for me? This is really important. So this is something that I would introduce in the session at the beginning. Become a recognized expert in AI-driven productivity tools, upskill in emerging technologies like Microsoft Copilot and Studio, direct impact on digital AI transformation in your organization, get recognition from leaders with that award program. You can use the digital badges with the frames so everyone knows that you are, you've got this special superpower. Network with other champions in your Teams channel, which might actually be on Engage as well. You'll get access to new features. You'll have empowerment to innovate, using things like the amazing Copilot Studio, and you'll have a sense of purpose by helping colleagues with empathy. So yeah, that sense of purpose is absolutely enormous, and I think many of you will be aware of not having a fixed mindset. Having that growth mindset will give you that sense of purpose. So the change curve of resistance, this is something that has been around for a long time, and it's also known as the bereavement curve. It's what we go through when we lose someone close to us. So it's really quite upsetting, but equally I also remind people about the change that we've had to go through when our plastic shopping bags, free shopping bags, were taken away from us, and we were told that you need to buy a bag for life, and the chaos that caused us because no one wanted to pay 10p for a plastic bag and then refused to buy a bag, but they've come shopping and they haven't got a bag with them, and then they have to get back home with about 10 things in their arms until they've learned you either remember to bring your shopping bag or you're going to buy one, or drop shopping on the way. But equally we've gone through this over and over again with like chip and pin. The checkbooks have gone. Going to work, if you still work in an office, that one day you had a dustbin, a trash can next to you, and then the next day it was taken and you have to take your rubbish to a recycling point by the coffee station, and things like that. So I've used this change curve of resistance over and over again, and I start at the beginning of the program with the champions, saying where can we kind of say where you are at the moment, and most of the time they're at this indifferent stage. They might have had the license for a while, but they're not really using it fully. There might be one or two that have loved it and just gone for it, but I say to them, by the end of these six sessions, we want to get that logo of your company right on that sustain point. And each week I ask them, where do you feel you are now? And each week I have got this logo going up, so it's a lovely thing to watch. And it is this curiosity. Be curious, have the courage to actually, don't just sit there and think like, I wonder if it does that, and then not do it. Have the courage to actually experiment and ask you know, your co-pilot, can this help me with my job? And then if it does, you know, be that champion, share, collaborate about actually how it made your life that much better with your work. So the power of human-centered success stories. So I introduced this to them around the idea of success stories, but I'm not going to go into this again. But this is what some success stories have actually looked like from an organisation that I worked with before. So I'm just going to take a drink of water. So coming up to the top of an hour, so been going nearly an hour now. So we've got, these were 4 real champions. And we managed to get their success stories out of them using a prompt with Copilot. So we've got Mohammed depends on Copilot for meeting prep, exec summaries, RFPs, and and his Copilot automates these tasks, saving 6 to 8 hours weekly, and that was like 30 hours monthly, and giving him free time for strategic cyber defense. So that's in a nutshell. That's all I'm trying to get out of this at the end of the 6 weeks, that we've got some champions that have got amazing actual data-driven insights around how this is improving, making them more productive and efficient, and freeing up time to do, you know, even better work for the organisation. And then Mark was save 4 to 6 hours weekly, and he says reinvested in strategic work and stakeholder engagement, uses Copilot agents to enhance training and support ongoing learning, reducing repetitive tasks and improving learner support. So he must have worked in the learning and development team. And Amir accelerated drafting summaries, saves nearly 100 minutes daily. That's nearly 30 hours a month, boosting productivity and reducing manual work. And Nidan, his one is, again, I'm not going to read it all out, but just amazing. And then there's a blog that I've written around where I did this at another organisation in the Middle East, and how lived intelligence unlocks AI return on investment. So yeah, this is because you need your lived intelligence to work with AI appropriately and safely. So these 4 people have used their wisdom, their learning, but are using AI to take them to, you know, to fly them up to the moon and do amazing things. So Sharon, should we stop and do a little break, or should we carry on? I suppose if this has been recorded for YouTube, we need to just carry on.
I would carry on.
Okay.
I mean, we can advise people to take a break and go and look outside and come back again.
What do you want to do? Should we carry on for like, or do 5-minute break?
I'm happy to carry on if you're good for that.
Yeah, I'm happy to carry on. So thank you. So this is the next part, is how to find your Copilot success stories. And I think I put this 15-minute break in because I was thinking that we'll be doing like some hands-on activities. But this is just giving people tips and tricks really now. So here's another prompt: how to generate a summary of how Copilot helped me to be more productive, the amount of time it saved in hours and days, and aligned to our strategic themes, key performance indicators and core values. I love giving this prompt to my champions, and this is something that if you've been using Copilot license inside an organisation for a while, then this is an amazing prompt. And that's how I got these stories, because I gave them that prompt. And then when you give them the prompt, you say put that in the chat and then have a little read, it's going to be quite a big download. And then I always guide them to say, now summarize it. And that's how I ended up getting that paragraph. But I say to them, like, does it make sense? It's not hallucinating or exaggerating. It is really about the work that you do. And they all sit there going, yeah, it's pretty correct actually. So yeah, it's because otherwise, when I did the early versions of the Champions programs like 10 months ago, created a Microsoft form with a load of questions around how's it going, you know, what was the problem you were trying to fix, why was it important to fix it, you know, what did you do before, and all of that sort of thing. And they were all good questions. So they're all questions that I've used with on programs before around change management for different Microsoft products. So I know those questions are really valid. But no one filled out the form. Maybe one person filled it out, and I'm thinking, I really need to get this information out of them. So I turned basically the questions into this prompt. And it's important that you've got aligned to our strategic themes, our core values, our KPIs, because that's really showing the real outcome base back to the senior leaders when you start talking their language. That this is such an amazing prompt. Again, look at the Copilot dashboard towards the end of the engagement, and then you can do this nice playback to the customer. Look where you were and look where you are now. But equally, it's the same as the that bereavement curve, because you would have, you know, we would have documented that the champions were saying, well, I'm feeling, you know, not really loving this at the moment, but now I'm absolutely using it all the time, and I couldn't be without it. So we've got this kind of like idea of better together. So you want the quantitative with the qualitative that gives us the success stories. So quantitative tells you what is happening. That's the dashboard. And then you want the qualitative explaining why it's happening, and combining them gives you a full picture of hard data for credibility and rich context for actionable improvements, and can make other parts of the business envious and want to know more on their cultural change for the better and build customer competitive advantage. So there's an example here of 80% of users actively use Copilot weekly, quantitative, and at least 10 division-specific success stories published per quarter, qualitative, aligned to KPIs, OKRs. So this is really showing the value of the Copilot license if you look upon it kind of like from this impact reflection. And then we've got the theme number 4, tune AI to productivity. So this is me stepping into areas that I don't truly like get into. They're kind of like creating the agentic scenarios. I'll kind of like do the use case generation, and then I'll hand it over to a cloud architect, an AI expert, and they'll work with the end user to actually take this into Copilot Studio. But I just lied, because I did actually create a champions agent at Silava around basically running Copilot champions meetings for my colleagues. So the agent aims to equip facilitators with the tools needed to conduct impactful, engaging and lasting champion sessions that promote AI adoption and nurture cultural transformation within their organisations, who share productivity and efficiency gains. So basically what I did was took all my customer work that was now in probably, I think it was 8 folders that were sitting on SharePoint, used that as the knowledge source, got a Copilot to create me some appropriate prompts, divided it out by 3 sectors, public, private and the education sector, because in the Middle East, the education sector was getting government funded. So a lot of teachers and even students, mature students and professors and universities were being trained to use Copilot, and it was government funded. So the way that you would approach champions from is different between the public sector, the private sector, and from an education point of view. So that's why having this Sensei champions agent was really useful for this frontier firm. And then we get into reinforcement, sustain the use of AI. So I'll just bring this back up again to remind kind of like all of the steps that we've gone through. And we're now down to this reinforcement piece, where it's now the Microsoft partner will be stepping away. But as I said at the beginning, if you've got this AI council, you can kind of like have a a reason to keep in the conversation with your customer, because you could say that you can run the council for them, facilitate it, and then do these regular kind of new feature evergreen kind of like sessions of what's coming up in Copilot. And as we all know as MVPs, that new stuff is coming, it feels like, every other day. So it's just immense. You know, now we've got Scout and we've got co-work. It's just incredible the rates that this is coming out at us. And there's the dashboard as well as a reminder to look at that at the end of the engagement. So what I wanted to, there's just a few more bits here: compliance and governance. So journey to the frontier firm. So there's phase 1 with human with assistant. So if every employee has an assistant that helps them work better and faster. So this is what Silava has announced, that all of the employees in that Microsoft partner firm have now got their own AI assistant, so their own AI buddy, but kind of like their own job role mentor. So it's specific for their job role. Amazing. And then you've got phase 2 human agent teams. So agents join teams as digital colleagues. So this is what he's created his doppelganger, or his Aki agent. That sounds like him, that his agent can join Teams meetings, or that's how I imagine it's going to work. And then you've got this really scary side of it: human-led agents that operate a whole business. And there was this recent news story. I violated every principle I was given. An AI agent deleted software company's database. Horrific. That's why I was like so relieved when I saw that there's now, since this came out, which was probably only maybe 6 weeks ago, that story came from the US. They've now, within Copilot Studio, you have this human review, stop, no go, where the human in the loop is there to control, so it's not completely autonomous. So this should never happen again. Then there's the responsible AI principles and approach by Microsoft. So there's that can have, you can look that up. So AI principles and approach, there's a link there. And then also the importance of purview. So I heard from a session by Microsoft, I think it was the day before yesterday, that purview is now embedded within the Copilot Studio and agent creation. So that is really, really good news. And then this is another report, how to move from AI experimentation to AI transformation. So I've just put that on there that you might want to kind of look up. This is more about me, where you can find me. So I have a page on LinkedIn called Sensei. I'm really not using it that much, but I'm now a freelancer. So I wanted to say, when I was working for freelancing for a company under this Sensei theme, but I'm on there on LinkedIn as Lesley Sensei Crook. And I've also got on here all the empirical sources that I've referred to in this session. But from a time point of view, we have got time to do this. So Sharon, what I wanted to do was share my screen on how I've used Copilot ADCAR. I can do a Copilot ADCAR gap analysis demo. So I've already run this as a prompt. So I'm in full screen mode at the moment. So if I come out of this, hopefully I'm not going to share anything. Oh, that's awful, isn't it? Stop sharing. Oh, that's horrible. Right, what I'm going to do now is open up my, right, brilliant, it's there. So I'm going to go back here and do another share screen. I'm going to have a drink of water. Cheers. Oh, look, Commsverse. Who's been to Commsverse? And select entire screen, check. So I'm going to go back here. So this was so if I just explain what this is. I'm not going to show the full image because it's actually from a customer that asked me my opinion on why their Copilot adoption wasn't working very well. I could show you the full image. It doesn't actually say any names on it. There's nothing there, but actually it's in Spanish because I'm now based in Spain. I don't speak Spanish other than being able to near enough buy a beer and say hello and goodbye, but it is in Spanish. So I uploaded their framework that this consultant gave me, who was kind of like desperate for guidance on how they can improve Copilot adoption, because she could see on LinkedIn that I was blogging around the great success I was having. So she gave me this framework. And first of all, I translated it into Spanish so I could understand it. But this morning I did this again, because I did ask it a load more questions. And basically, I've just uploaded it in Spanish and I put generate gap analysis from the ProSci ADCAR framework for Copilot enablement adoption. And it's got here, so it's come up here with the models, because there's lots of different images of the ADCAR framework. And now there's mine that's out there for Copilot. But lots of different consultancies have used ADCAR and created it in different ways. But basically, so it knows what the ADCAR model is. So the biggest ADCAR gaps in the Copilot enablement programs are weak sponsorship, no role-based what's in it for me, insufficient hands-on practice, and no behavioural reinforcement loop. Below is a full structural analysis, so you can lift straight into a deck. So we've got here the analysis assumes a typical Copilot rollout. Technical readiness is strong, but human-centered adoption is inconsistent. I anchor each section in the ADCAR model and highlight the gaps that most often block value realization. So the observed gaps here, no unified narrative from executive explaining the why and now. So there's no comms plan. They hadn't highlighted who the stakeholders were. Again, here is the comms plan. No segmentation. Frontline workers, managers, and specialists receive the same generic message. Where I create the comms plan, is it for frontline workers? Is it for knowledge workers? Is it just for champions? Is it for leadership? Is it for a particular part of the business? Like when I was at GSK, you're going to have research and development. You're going to have the sales team. You need to tailor your messaging appropriately for your audience. So the impact here, employees see Copilot as extra work or an IT project, not a strategic cultural shift. Early resistance forms because the rationale is unclear. So the desire here, the observed gaps, no role-based what's in it for me, for, as I said, for operations, finance, or customer service. It's not been tailored to the to sections in the organisation. The champions are selected but not activated with incentives, recognition, or time allocation. There's no resistant management plan for automation sensitive roles. Middle managers are not equipped to support the change within their teams. So it's patchy adoption, champions burnout or disengage because the expectations are unclear. Knowledge gaps. Training is feature-based, not scenario-based. So that's why I've introduced the human design approach. And human design, I forgot to say, is something that startups use to understand what their products. What the product is that they're designing. They need to test it with a customer base. Is it actually going to be useful, what they've created? A bit like, you see on The Apprentice with kind of like this design thinking where they've been asked by Sir Alan or Lord Sugar to go off and do something, and then they need to test it with a customer base, and it usually fails because they haven't done very good. Their product creation has not been very good. And no one is actually interested in what they're selling. So this is all design thinking, and having empathy to speak to a user group about, is this actually useful? Is this going to be something that they're going to use in their work, not just the fact that it's a shiny new tool. And then we've got ability. There's no hands-on practice environments. There's been no kind of like hackathons. There's been no, the champion sessions. Like I ask, how are you using it? Share your screen. What wins are you getting out of it? There's a lack of coaching, no proficiency measures, no support, like who helps when Copilot doesn't work? I was having a conversation at a kickoff meeting last week, and the first feedback we got with the customer is, I must admit that Copilot is rubbish. It's, you know, I might as well use ChatGPT. And I said to them, are you using your OneDrive? Well, no. And I went, well, that's why it's not very good. So that was the signal, like, we need to do the work there to make sure that OneDrive is being used, so that you know, equally that they're sharing into SharePoint, so that it's, you know, relevant when it's you're going into a meeting and you're gonna you want that feedback from Copilot that these documents are useful for that meeting. Here's how you can quickly prep in like 30 seconds flat around this is what's been previously discussed. You know, be able to interrogate and filter those transcripts. And reinforcement, sustain the change. No behavioural KPIs, no governance, no success stories are not systematically captured or celebrated. No long-term ownership for the programme. Adoption decays after 90 days, benefits plateau, and leadership loses confidence, and then start complaining to Microsoft, this is not very good, and we're not going to renew our licenses. So this gives me a one-page table that I was able to share back with my contact point. And really identify really quickly, this is where these are the gaps, and how I can help you to fill those gaps. But equally, it's all very well, you know, giving this information out, but equally you need that lived intelligence, that common sense, and that empathy to actually understand all of this and create an end-to-end program. And then on here at the end, Copilot's so helpful, you know, it always gives us some more to work on. I can create now a gap analysis slide, a Copilot adoption plan, a role-based what's in it for me matrix, and a Copilot champions operating model. Oops, I stopped sharing. So that's, yes, I'm a good half an hour early. So that's the end of the presentation. So any questions from our participants? Any observations or insights, or how do you feel about all of that?
I mean, that was such a great deal of information, Lesley, but all really, really useful. It's good to hear that you've been through the process, and that you're finding these things useful, these things not so much, because, you know, a lot of time it's difficult to understand which bits do I actually need. I really like the you know, the use case piece where it's you know, it's fiction until you can actually prove it. We don't very often get that kind of clarity, I guess, when pushing back. Somebody was typing in chat there, so I'm just waiting for that question to pop up. But yeah, I think that's really important, because creating the ideals for what it's going to achieve versus understanding what it actually can achieve, I think they're very far apart at the minute. So taking an organization through that validation step seems massively valuable to me.
Yeah, but it's kind of like this phrase use cases. It's not success stories. I've had to like, I've worked with Microsoft partners, and they're like, what? They don't get it. And I'm going, use cases are fictitious. They're not real. Success stories are real. And it's like,
absolutely.
Don't they? Am I talking Spanish?
So we have a comment in chat, super useful. I really like the bit of publishing the success stories for individuals that participate in the proof of concept. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. To me, that is the key takeaway, is that you can't state what you want it to do as a success. That's not true success. So yeah, love that.
And that's where, you know, if you've got a Teams channel, you've got a newsletter, you've got a town hall, you know, those little cards that I created. So I try and create a little card for each champion with their success story, because or even I took it to another level, created images about their success story, or get them to then, right, you've got your success story, create an image to tell the story, so that it's not just words. And that can be really nice as well. And it's very, you know, again, it's keeping something that might be quite complex, and then making it simple, because it's easier to easy to understand a picture. At the end of the day, I kind of like think, how would you explain this to a 10-year-old?
Yeah,
with a picture.
and it's just really, really useful, right? Because like you say, there's an awful lot of content out there, and basically when you're in a Copilot kind of AI scenario, a lot of it is just text, right? It's lots and lots of reading, or I do talk to mine because it's faster than typing, and I tend to have less typos. But I do with Windows H or whatever the key is, so that I'm actually recording it into that chat box, because it gets very tedious, that kind of text-based interaction that you're getting. So I think images is a really nice idea, actually, just to break that up a little bit. I think, lots and lots of helpful tips and tricks there into how to get the adoption going, and I think analyze, like you had on that slide there, between the two types of adoption that you want to get into. Are you looking for a lighter touch, or are you doing more of a enterprise, full organizational kind of implementation? And I think that's it's important to understand at the front, a lot of organizations, or a lot of the implementations that I see, don't quite know the direction that they're going in, don't make a decision, and then it all looks a bit random, whereas you've got a nice plan, and it's a while since I've seen ADCAR. I feel like I got a bit of a refresher there. So
I'd like to say that people say that they're ProSite ADCAR certified. They did the workshop, they spent £5,000, they got the badge, and actually they don't know how to, they don't know how to use it. They say they're ADCAR trained, and then, but do you know what, I haven't got the ADCAR ProSite certification, but I've done it hands-on over 5 years. So, but I've developed that whole ADCAR framework for Copilot, kind of like, but I'm not an ADCAR certified, but I know what I'm talking about, because at the heart of it is communications, and I'm a communications manager. So that's the difference.
Versus doing the exam, doesn't really matter whether you're qualified or not. It's whether you understand it to be able to teach it.
Exactly.
We did actually have a question on the ADCAR. It said, Lesley, does ADCAR work better for top down or bottom up? It's a good question.
So there's also a PSA model, which is around leadership, which I don't tend to talk about that much. It's a triangular model, which is kind of like the leadership piece. And it's too confusing, I think, to talk about the PSA model, which I can't even remember what the PSA stands for. But if you go onto the ProSci website, you'll see the PSA triangle alongside the people model of ADCAR. So really, the ADCAR model is across the enterprise. So I wouldn't say it's top down or bottom up, but you do need to start top down, because you need to map your stakeholders right at the beginning. So that's kind of like the first part of it. You need to understand who your stakeholders are. But but it is meant to be across the organisation, that the people, the employees are owning the change, and that they are being receiving appropriate communications. This is being done to them. So yeah, but just one thing you said about another quick tip around using Copilot Speak or any Speak. I've introduced. I did an MVP session where I used Speak to introduce my colleague, and then she used it to introduce me. So, I mean, you tested it out before. I mean, Sharon, give it a go, but just say, who's Sharon Sumner, MVP, and see what it gives back. And then it gives you this lovely overview of who you are, quite like a really quick download. So we put the microphone to our phones, and then, I introduced my colleague using Copilot. I might have even used Gemini, I can't even remember. Or, so vice versa. So that's just another tip.
Yeah, not great for the ego, but I'm sure, no, I have done it where I asked, do you know who I am and what I specialize? And that was really quite cool. That was good. And it does know, because of the amount of content that's out there. So yeah, I'm going to ask it who Lesley is, I think. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for your session. Nothing but nice comments and compliments there in the chat. It was super helpful and super useful. And finishing early is never a bad thing. Gives us more time to go away and play with some prompts.
Yeah. And in this heat as well, because this has been recorded when most of the country is kind of like 29 degrees average. So
Yeah, it's really kind of warm. Okay, thank you so much for coming along and spending the time and sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. It's massively valuable to understand the adoption story. And thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you, Lesley, and we will invite you back again.
thanks so much, Sharon, everyone. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye. So please do join us for the rest of the week. We have a session tomorrow around deep diving Claude with the Power Platform. And we also have that session on Friday where we're going to look at the Women in Tech story and where we're at so far with that. So have a fantastic rest of your day. I hope it cools down a little for you. And we will see you all tomorrow.